Hello, and this is Colton from the Dungeons and Dangerous Chemicals podcast. Before this episode starts, I would like to let you viewers know that this episode was recorded virtually due to the success of our first episode. We've realized that most of our viewers don't understand the basics of D&D. Well, they get the gist of it, but would like to learn more. So this is just a quick clear up from that. To get this out as fast as possible, we recorded virtually. And yeah, that is all. We apologize for some of the technical difficulties throughout this episode, such as audio cutting out through Anchor, the app we use to publish onto Spotify, and my audio being a little bit choppy throughout it, and this intro part having a slight ringing in the background. We'll get that all sorted out soon. Just please share this podcast and stick with it if you can. And yeah, that's all. Enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the Dungeons and Dangerous Chemicals podcast. I'm your co-host Colton, along with my other co-host Nate. Hello.
Hello.
This is episode 2. In the last episode, what did we talk about, Nate?
Last episode, we went over the basics of the barbarian class.
Yay! And we kind of come to the realization that in the first episode, we assumed our listeners would be like pretty seasoned D&D players. But then I was thinking like, well, why would they be listening if they were? So we're gonna take a step back from all that, and today we're gonna be talking about D&D as a whole and what it is and how to play. You know.
hmm
So Nate, you've been playing for 2 months now, right?
Yeah, something like that. 2, 3.
Yeah, on and off because scheduling is something. So I want to ask you a very
Yeah.
important question.
Yep.
What is D&D? What is it?
It's a tabletop role-playing game. TTRPG.
Yay! The world's best, supposedly. That's on all the books. It
Apparently,
sounds like
yeah.
self-proclaimed. I agree though.
It is pretty good.
Um, I like to think that D&D is whatever you want it to be because there are the base rules and a bunch of extra rules, and it keeps. It's like the game of pretend you play like when you're a kid on the playground, where it's like, oh, I do this and that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like
This
that
kind of
game,
sounds like my
but like,
reference.
what was that?
Kind of seems like I made this reference to
I think
you.
you did. Yeah. It's like that, but then there's somebody to enforce the rules, which we call the dungeon
Yeah.
master. In other games, they're called GM, game master, but in D&D, they're specifically the master of dungeons because the game is called Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, it's a tabletop role-playing game. I guess you did make the reference to me. I didn't even think about that. I'm like, I just. And while there are base rules and they're important to follow, you could play a D&D for anything. I've played Pokemon D&D. You could do literally anything and make it into Dungeons and Dragons. But your classic D&D game is a party of adventurers, which are characters played by real people that are exploring a fantasy world and going through a story. And yeah, you make the story together. So let's get into it. Give me a little bit about D&D, Nate. We can talk about stuff.
Well, there's a lot about D&D. Okay.
There is,
So,
yeah.
like, we could be here for a really long time if we don't focus on specifics.
Okay. So I think we should start
Um,
with.
yeah.
Actually, you decide. I don't know. Where are
What?
we starting?
Let's start with like the very basics. Like,
Okay.
how do you start? What do you start with? You don't just go, everybody sit down, we're gonna play D&D. You gotta have like an idea. Because you have the story, you gotta have characters.
Yes. Okay. So I'd say the hardest part of D&D, in my opinion, and the biggest is the barrier of entry because you have to make a character, which isn't that easy, and it's overwhelming to a lot of new players. It's like, oh, numbers and words, I don't know what they mean. It's a mess. So yeah. Um, but you've made how many characters now
I've
in
made
the last
about
couple?
5 or 6.
Yes.
Four
And
in
they're all
3 in current active use.
yeah. So so I'm not sure where to go from here. Okay. So you make your character. You Each character has three main attributes that describe who they are. First up is their race, which tell me how that is. How's that going?
Uh, so I don't have all of them, but like
Yeah, I need a list.
races I don't know if you want to. Races have certain benefits called racial bonuses. For example, I play human in in our campaign
Hmm.
because he's a very basic one to pick from. Um, and he just gets a +1 to all of his stats. And then there's like, what's another classic one? What
Uh,
does Elf get?
they get they get a plus bonus. I believe their intelligence and dex, I believe. We'll get to the stat bonuses. I just want to cover here. Basically, you are typically playing in a world that is not real. It's fantasy, and there's more than just humans. Race isn't like ethnicity, that's like a subsection of each race. It's more of just like what species are you? The classic ones
Yeah,
are like what you think of when you think of fantasy. There's elves, there's humans, there's orcs, there's dwarves, there's
Goblin.
halflings,
Can't play as a
goblins.
goblin, I don't think. Can you
You
play as a goblin?
can, yes. There's
I don't think it's a
in,
base class though.
it's not in the player's handbook, but there's a book. I
Yeah,
believe it's in the book Volo's Guide to Monsters. You can play as the monsters races. There's some other ones that aren't as classic, but they are important and in the base rules, like the Tiefling, which is like a infernal kind of demony kind of person. Typically, you play as a humanoid creature, like they're similar to a human in shape and size and proportion. Like obviously, you can be smaller or bigger. But your race isn't everything. It's not at all. It's just your base physical characteristics. They can be
yeah,
fairly stereotyped. Like one hobbit. I mean, halflings are typically physically weaker, but they're more dexterous and like happy and go lucky. But that's not always. You can
yeah,
play a halfling as a brute barbarian. It's your race, and your race gives
yeah.
special bonuses to your stats. Now let's look at the stats. You want to cover what the stats are? I feel like I'm talking too much.
Uh, Stats. You're talking about like the stat block up to 20, right?
The ability scores, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're creating your character, you can just pick which numbers you want if it's like allowed with your campaign rule set or whatever,
Well,
or for
no,
whatever reason.
you
But
roll
usually,
or take the.
usually
Usually
you
you
just
roll the
roll.
stats or the standard array. Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's
Sorry.
we should have said probably the best way to make a character if you're new is to just go to like D&D Beyond, right?
Yeah, D&D
Because they
Beyond
just they
is the
have it set up
official.
for you. You just go right through it.
It's an official like character. It's the site for D&D digitally. You can make a character on there with the races and classes. The only like it's free to use, but for all the basic stuff, just a lot of the more stuff from other books are paid, and there's a big paywall behind that. But besides that, it's a great site to use. We have six main stats that determine every character has six stats. They're called ability scores.
Right. So
And
there's strength.
yep.
I'm not going to go in order. Constitution,
Okay.
wisdom,
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah.
there's one more that I cannot remember.
Charisma.
Charisma. There it is.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know what all of them do because I'm still new.
mhm. So I like to think of them as split into three each. There's the two groups with three each. You have the physical side and the more mental side. The physical side are just your character's physical ability. So you have
Yeah.
your strength, which is pretty self-explanatory. It's your maximum output. It's how much you can muscle through stuff. It's your ability to use force. Pretty basic. Dexterity is kind of like your it's less of your max physical physique and it's more of your control over it. It's your balance. It's your ability to like do like sort of damage that is more quick. It's speedy.
Body
It's
control.
stealthily. Yeah. It's balance. It's sneaking. It's stealing. It's just control. Yeah. Like if you're trying to pinch somebody, if you're trying to get a certain spot, that'd be dexterity. But if you're trying to just hurt, that'd be strength. And then there's
Yeah.
Constitution, which is probably the weirdest skill in terms of how it works. I mean, ability score. Constitution is like your physical might, your fortitude, I guess, your ability to withstand like pain. It determines your HP. It's not used that often, but when it is, it's like not to be pushed around, how not to get sick, to like withstand drowning, to withstand spicy foods. It's your like limit. It's your defense, I guess. And then you have the mental side. Do you know the difference between wisdom and intelligence?
Uh, not really.
Okay, it's fine. They get mixed up a lot. I remember I was confused for years between the two. So the best way to explain that, I think, is wisdom is like, as you know, intelligence. We'll go with intelligence first. Intelligence is like your previous knowledge. It's like just facts. How much you know about religion, how much you know about history, how much you know about medicine. It's just like if you'd get smarter if you go to like a school and your intelligence would go up. It's like book
Yeah,
smarts, I guess. Well,
yeah,
wisdom is your ability, it's like your common sense and your ability to learn. It's like if you don't know how to do something, wisdom's your way to just figure it out, I guess, not using any
yeah.
prior knowledge. It's also
So
your
that would
ability
be
to
like,
perceive.
yeah, perception and stuff like
Yeah.
what you can see
Mhm.
and understand around you.
Yeah. Like survival, like you can roll survival, you can if you're proficient, you know how to do it, it's intelligent. But it's more just like being wise and making good decisions. And charisma's also like weird little like dexterity and strength will go together and wisdom and intelligence go together. And then strength and constitution's kind of on its own and charisma's kind of on its own. Charisma is your force of personality. I like to think of it as also as your just spiritual will. It's very spiritual and it's just very not even mental. It's just more part of your like spirit, I'd say. How
Yeah,
you influence others and how you are socially in a positive or negative way. Like if you're intimidating somebody just by like saying things, that would still be charisma. But if you wanted to scare somebody and you were bad at charisma, that isn't. It just means that you're bad at doing that. Or if you're trying to like be nice or
yeah.
charm somebody. So yeah, those are the basic 6 stats. And those matter because your race gives you benefits to each stat, depending on your race. Let's say a random race.
Half orc.
Half orc. So you're half orc. A orc is like a big brute creature, and you're half human, so you're a half orc. Like, so you would be more physically capable. So I believe you get a plus, I think a +2 to your strength and a +1 to your constitution. So you're just more physically brutal. And then that's how you add those to your ability scores. Now the pluses aren't what you add to your roll. When you roll, yeah, I can't speak. When you roll your ability scores, the specifics of it, you can look into that more when you're building a character. This isn't a guide. This is just what is D&D. But the lowest you can roll, I believe, would be a 3, which is really bad, and the highest is an 18. Now the average, I'm pretty sure the average, not character, like not the average number wise, but the average like civilian in D&D has a 10 in every stat, like you're a normal dude. But as a player, you should have a little bit more than that in every stat. Some could be lower though. So my point here is you roll your things, and then based off your race, you add some numbers to it, and you cannot increase an ability score above 20. You can't
Yeah.
unless something tells you to. Like in the last episode, we covered barbarians at level 20 can do that because they're insane. So those numbers, there's a chart. There's a certain math thing to it. Basically, there's a chart that says based off what that number is, 1 through 20. You add or subtract a certain amount to a dice roll using that check. So give me a scenario we would have to roll a strength check.
Uh, there's a boulder in your path. You're trying to push it out of the way.
All right. Let's say you have. Give me a number, 1 through 20.
13.
Let's say you have 13 strength. You roll on the d20. You put a 20-sided die, the famous d20. And let's say you get a 10. You just roll a 10. Well, then you look at your number, and based off that, you have a modifier, which for a 13 you would be adding 1 to your roll, so you would get an 11. Probably gonna fail. What you need in order to beat it is determined by the dungeon master, which we'll get into. We'll have another episode on DMing, likely. We might have a guest on that who's very
Yeah.
interested in that. But sorry. Also, sorry, I'm talking a lot. It's just I don't know.
Well, it's good because I don't know anything about this. This is kind
Yeah,
of the point of this podcast. You explain stuff
yeah,
to me and everybody who's listening also gets to learn.
Hi, people. So, what was that? Oh yeah. So that's how that works. Um, so then you also have skills, which are like subsidiary. They're like sub ability scores. So you're proficient in a certain amount of skills, which means you're good with them based off your character. We'll get to how you get skills then when we get to classes. But it's probably gonna be a slightly longer episode, but it's fine. So those skills, they're each tied to a certain ability score. So you give me a skill.
Perception, because that one's
Okay.
used a good bit.
Yeah. So let's say you're walking through the woods, and actually no, let's say you're in a hotel, and you're sitting at the hotel. You notice something in the corner of the room move, and you want to take a closer look at it. You tell the DM your character's gonna do that. You say, okay, roll perception. You roll, and then you. So even if you don't have proficiency in it, you're still rolling perception. And perception is a skill that is based upon the wisdom ability score, so you add your wisdom. But let's say when you made your character, you are good at perception. You chose to be skilled in it. You're proficient.
You're a
That's what you
very
do normally.
perceptive person.
Yes.
You would add your proficiency bonus, which depending on your
Yeah.
level is different, up to
hmm 6.
6.
Yeah. You start with a +2, and as you level up, it goes the whole way up to a +6. So you add that. So it's like you're good at wisdom, let's say. But even if let's say you're pretty bad at wisdom, like you're just not very wise, you don't make good decisions. But you just
Yeah,
naturally have great eye, really good like senses, like you're good at that. So let's say you have a -1 to your wisdom. Normally you'd do bad, but now yeah you have a +2, so you have a +1 overall. Does that make sense to people? If it doesn't, don't worry about it. I'm sure if you're ever playing, the DM can help you explain it a lot better than I can over a podcast. But that's the gist of what skills are. There's a bunch of skills, and you're not going to get all of them unless you're a specific build trying to get all of them. Some random ones include athletics, which is strength, investigation, which is, I think, intelligence, survival, which is wisdom. Nate, give me one right now.
um, I think I need to pull these up.
Name a skill. You've rolled skills before.
Any skill? Yeah, but decision history. Did you say that?
Yes, no, I didn't. History. History is based off of intelligence because it's how much you know. So yeah. So if your character's a book nerd and they love history, well, then you're probably good at history. So you might be thinking, how do I determine what I'm good at? Do I just choose? Because like that seems like a little open-ended. Nope. Yes, but no. So after you choose your race, you choose something else, probably much more important than your race, your class. Nate, how would you describe a class?
A class is uh how you what your character is, like their profession, sort of,
Yes, that's a
but
great way to describe
specifically
it.
for
Like,
D&D.
yeah, like you could be like a college teacher in D&D. If you're playing a less fantasy world type one, but you could also be like college teachers in a class. It's like a college teacher, but you could also be any class. It's I guess it's less professional, but that's a good way to describe it. It's how you fight traditionally, because in D&D there's typically combat involving how you deal with enemies. But it's not just fighting. You get abilities from your class as you level up that deal with what you do. There are
Mhm.
currently this is Dungeons and Dragons fifth edition, the fifth iteration of the game as it's been changed over the years, and soon it'll be moving to just Dungeons and Dragons, no more editions. It's going to be based off of 5e. It's a whole thing. We'll talk about that in the far future probably. But anyway, in fifth edition there are 13 classes. There were 12, but another one got added. I don't have a list up, but I don't know why. I'm a nerd. I memorized this in alphabetical order. They are artificer, barbarian, bard, cleric, druid, fighter, monk, paladin, ranger, rogue, sorcerer, warlock, wizard. I don't think I missed one. No, I
I
didn't.
didn't
Okay.
count.
Well, I don't know why I practiced that like last year. I learned how to do that for fun, I guess. So that's a lot,
Well, it
but they all do
came
different
in
things.
handy.
Yeah. I'm gonna I'm gonna say a class, and you're gonna tell me what you think it does really quickly, and I'm gonna give you the briefest rundown I can. All right,
Okay.
artificer. What do you think they do? Nate,
They make stuff in like
yep.
more ancient times. It's like with magic, kind of like makes magical items. But if you're like playing a more modern campaign sort of thing, they could like they'd be an inventor.
Yeah. So artificers are the newest class. They were added in a separate book called Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. They're newer, like I think they were in an older edition, but they're newer to fifth edition. Basically, what Nate said, they're inventors. They were in a specific setting, but because each DM, each world you play in is their own world, but there's also like pre-written setting worlds made by the Dungeons and Dragons company, Wizards of the Coast. One of them is called Eberron, and it's more like dystopian, deserty, techno. There's robots and stuff, and that's where they introduced the artificer. Um, and in this, they yeah, they make inventions. They make mundane things magical. Their magic is like tinkering. They don't like suddenly cast spells. Like when they cast a spell, they invent it. Like if they cast the web spell, they made up a tiny little robot spider that makes a web. I don't know. It's up
Yeah,
to the player how it goes. They use intelligence, I believe. Yeah, that's their main skill they use. Ability score,
we should
whatever.
probably explain that. Each like class has their own skills that
Oh
they
yeah.
are best
hmm
at.
Yeah. And then whenever you get the class, you choose from a list of what skills you get, and but like these two ability scores, you get two ability scores typically that you're specifically good at. I don't know what the other one is for Artificer. It's intelligence and something else. I have no idea. But next up is Barbarian. You want to learn about barbarians, viewer? We made an episode on that. Yay.
We already did
Um,
that. We just did it early.
yeah. Nate, give me a very, very brief rundown on barbarians.
Barbarians are aggressive and they're tanky. They're definitely the frontliner, and they
hmm
have special ability called Rage, and then most of their abilities have to do with that.
hmm Yeah, they're angry. They're very physical. Their scores are Constitution and Strength. All right. Next up, I'm just gonna try to run through these fast. I'm not gonna ask you about everyone, just the ones you know more about.
Yeah,
I think. Next up is Bard. Bards are typically musicians, but not always. They're just generically that. They're a jack of all trades. They're like a master of none, but they're okay at everything. Like, they get abilities that let them do that. One is specifically called jack of all trades. They're inspiring. They take up a more support role. If you like play video games, they're more of a support class. They can learn spells from any spell list with some abilities, and they can buff their teammates with inspiration. Yeah, they take up like a specific thing that is like passionate. Like they play the song so well that it's like in tune with the magic of the world. Or like you could have a bard that like cooks or like does Shakespeare. I don't know. That's what bards do. They use charisma and dexterity, I think. Maybe just charisma. But they're
charisma
very
definitely.
personality.
I don't know the other one
Yeah,
though.
they're like the social class. Next up is cleric. Nate, you play a cleric. Tell me about clerics.
Cleric is intelligence and wisdom.
Yay. But what are they?
They're usually healers. They're magic users.
Yes,
Uh, Mostly they class like used as healers, but they're a lot like wizards in a way.
they're
They have
priests.
a lot of overlapping spells
Mhm.
and stuff.
They're they're
They're priests.
religious.
They have a deity that they
Mhm.
uh follow,
So
favor, whatever.
yes, the way all of these spells are, I mean, classes are magical, and the only difference is besides how they cast the spells is how they gain their power. So clerics gain their spells. They don't get it. It's not given to them from their god, but their belief in their god and their extreme worship gives them the ability to cast magic and that faith. It's the faith there. There's different domains, like depending on what kind of god you worship. So if you worship a god that involves healing, so you get a lot of healing spells, and you're a healer
Yes.
type character. But clerics aren't always that. They can use physical weapons. They get really good armor. They're not. Don't make your clerics constantly heal. Don't do that. They are more than just a healer. But yeah, next up is druid. Druids are like clerics of the old gods of like nature.
Nature.
Not gods. Yeah, they involve with nature and the earth. They're able to turn into animals. They're able to control naturey stuff. I'm gonna use the word nature a lot because that's what they do. They do turn into animals. They use, I believe, wisdom. I don't know what else. All right. Next up is fighter. You guessed it, they fight, but they're more than that. They're okay,
Strength and dex, probably.
probably.
Those are
Yeah,
my guesses.
I think so. They're proficient in pretty much every weapon. Like most, like they can. Every fighter pretty much is a master at all. At all, not master, but you can use. You can pick up like any weapon or armor piece around you, put it on and wear it. They're extremely customizable, and they're just fun to use. They're more than just like, oh, I hit the guy. It's like you can do a lot of cool stuff with fighters. They're not generic. Um, Next is monk, my favorite class personally. Nate, what's a monk?
A monk, they they're very fast and they hit
Yes.
things lots of times, but they don't use weapons or armor, right?
Mm-hmm. You
They're
want to
just
hear my tagline
open-handed. Sure, go ahead.
for monks? Do you want to punch a dragon? Because that's what
I
you're gonna
mean,
do.
they do,
Monks,
and it works.
yeah, they're martial artists, but they're spiritual. They're like they're the only class in my I think that's inspired by the East and not just Western pop culture. They're very a lot of people think they don't fit in, but they're not just punching a dragon. They're fused with their natural inner energy called ki. It's like an energy system that you have within you from your spirit. You infuse your strikes with it, you go better with it, you go above and beyond. You fast. They attack the most in the game throughout until level 20, but don't worry about that. They attack the most, and they hit with their bare palms. And yeah, they're fast. They're wise. They use wisdom and dexterity. They be flying around, not flying. Well, actually, yes,
Just go
but
at it.
we'll get to that. Yeah, they do a lot. Next is paladin. I want to try to really speed run. They have an oath to something. They're like clerics, or they get it normally from a god or like an
Uh,
actual concept. What?
you back? Hi, you disconnected.
Oh, I'm here. Am I not here?
You
Oh, okay. Sorry. Where did I leave off?
you just finished monk.
Okay. Next up is paladin. Paladins are kind of like clerics, but they have an oath to something. It's like it's not their faith in something, it's their oath. Typically a god, but it also could be their oath to get revenge or their oath in peace. It's their connection to that like vow they've taken that gives them the power. They're half casters, so they can cast spells, but they also use big weapons, big armor, and they smite, which means they use their spell slots to put a lot of damage into one big swing. I have no idea what ability scores they use. Actually, I think it's charisma and strength, but boom.
Probably.
Next is
That would
ranger. It's like a what? Sorry. Next is ranger. Ranger is like a druid fighter. It's like you're a hunter, you're a trapper, you're a woodsy dude. I think he used wisdom and
yeah,
dexterity. They're often seen with either a bow or two long weapons. You can do whatever, but that's just how they're seen, like two long straight swords run through the woods. But yeah. Um. All right, ranger. Okay. Now these last three are the big three of the magic users, and they're very similar but also very different. Do you know the difference between a sorcerer and the other ones?
um, sorcerer is born with magic, right?
Yes. They get their
Okay,
magic either from their bloodline or they somehow get it from like an event, but normally they're just born with it in their blood or a curse. It's like their other classes channel magic to cast it. Theirs is innate and raw magic. They just boom. They use charisma. I don't know what else, but charisma, and they alter their magic in like they physically just change how the magic works because it's so raw and it's straight out of them. They don't need to like learn it. They just do it. And then there is Warlock, which is they get their magic from another being, probably a big bad guy or like a devil or a demon or just a big creature. It could be a celestial. It doesn't have to be bad. Just a strong creature. They make a pact with it. It's like a deal. You do stuff for me, and I get your
yeah.
soul, and I give you power.
Hmm.
They are very weird. They're specific, and I don't know. They're odd. They cast magic though, and yeah, they use charisma. I think. And what's that final class, Nate?
The last class is Wizard, which is probably one of
Yo.
the more well-known, right? Like when you're thinking of
Yeah.
characters you're playing in
Fantasy.
a fantasy role-playing game, you're playing a wizard, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they learn their spells and they put them in
Yeah.
a spell book, which will
Yeah.
probably be mentioned quite a lot
Hmm.
in their own separate video.
Yay. Probably the last one for classes, maybe. I don't know. But
Wizard
while
that's slashed
sorcerers just
alphabetically.
get, I don't. Yeah. Um. So like, while sorcerers are like born with it, their magic, and warlocks like they just make a deal. Clerics just pray, and bards just kind of feel good. Wizards have to sit down and be nerds. They any average Joe with enough effort and time can become a wizard by just studying magic, memorizing scripts, and just becoming arcane. They cast big booms. They cast whatever they want, pretty much. And yeah, they use intelligence. I think it's just I don't know. But yeah, they just have to learn it. That was a lot.
Yeah,
It's already been 30 minutes. Wow. Well,
it has been.
it's fine. It'll be a
I
little
figured
under.
this would probably take a few episodes to cover everything about D&D.
Yeah, I think we're gonna. Yeah, do you want to keep what was I saying? I think this is a good time to take the short rest.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back. We'll have a little segment where we.
Hello and welcome to the short rest of episode 2. Hi Nate. Hi. This is recorded after everything else, but yeah. So random chemical of the daytime, I guess.
Yeah.
Ooh. You want to choose random
I
one?
pick a cabinet, you pick a camera.
Yeah.
I want this one.
Okay. I see what I want. One or two, Nate.
2.
Okay. That's what I kind of want.
And the chemical of the day is. Does it have a name on
It
it?
has a chemical formula. 0.1 meters
Moles.
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 Oh, stupid. Of AgNO. Wait. I'm not. Silver nitrogen O3.
Silver nitrate, probably.
So yeah, silver nitrate.
AgNO3 is that?
Yeah. I'm gonna look it up on here. I think it still records. I hope it still records. Okay. Sorry for the. You have it?
Silver nitrate.
Silver nitrate. Okay. That's it. We got silver nitrate today. What does that do?
I have no idea.
Any science
It's a
nerds out there?
chemical.
It is a chemical. I hope you guys are enjoying learning about D&D. Borax. Okay. I don't know what that is. Zinc nitrate. This is crazy. Oh yeah. There's a lot of nitrates in this camera. Is it drinkable?
No.
Okay. It doesn't have a
It
modern
is nitrogen.
Nitrogen
And
is
silver.
nitrogen is literally in the air.
Yeah.
It's great to drink.
You don't drink it.
You breathe it. It's in your
In very small amounts.
60% of it of the or something. Yeah. Thank you for listening. We apologize for any audio things. More listeners on Spotify, the more money, eventually money, and then more mic.
Yeah.
Also,
I think you're wishing too much. Here.
yeah, we got a Twitter, we got an Instagram, we got a YouTube, we got a Spotify, obviously, and we got a bunch of stuff. We have a link tree. Check out our thing. It's just our name. Probably just look it up. We'll find it. Same logo. And yeah, that's it. Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to the episode.
Yeah.
All right. Hello and welcome back from the short rest. Hope you enjoyed that chemical. Before we move on, I wanted to mention a few things. Just throw out a few things before we move on out of the video. First of all, I wanted to mention if it's not audio, obvious, probably better audio quality. This video is recorded digitally, besides the segment in between.
Yeah,
We are
we're at
not.
home.
Yes, technically we haven't recorded the chemical of the day yet. We're doing that tomorrow. But yeah, we just figured it'd be easier and faster to get this out for the people who want to know what D&D is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shout out to our 7 listeners. One of which is apparently from Portugal. Hello.
Hello, Portugal.
Yay. I really hope it's not somebody with their VPN on, but I guess we'll see. But yeah,
It
thank you
probably is.
everyone. We'll, we'll do a little bit more shout outs or whatever at the end. But back into where we were. All right. So you got your class, right? Your class is your bread and butter. It's where you're getting your stuff. But there's one more thing that defines a character. You got your race, you got your class, and what else do you got, Nate?
Backstory you're going for here.
Yes, background.
Background,
So,
whatever. Same thing.
well, backstory is like more for just like the role play. Like this is where I came from.
Yeah,
Background is a
well, yeah.
feature. While your race might get some, you might unlock more stuff in your race. Most of your race is static. Like at level 1, you get your race stuff, you're done pretty much. Your class is very dynamic. As you level up, get stronger, you go through that class. But and same with your background, it's all you get it at level 1 and you got it. Some examples of backgrounds are um, urchin, noble,
Noble.
acolyte,
Yeah.
yeah, acolyte, sailor, guild artisan, just whatever you did in the past. There's a bunch. They give you normally 2 proficiencies in skills. Sometimes they give you proficiencies in certain tools you can use. Sometimes languages, I think, and just stuff like that. And normally a feature that you can use, but no one really often uses them. But yeah, Sage is one of them. But that's background. It's not that important, but like I know in the upcoming one when they're putting D&D and like one forever, this is D&D. They're making backgrounds much more important to the game. So that's character creation. It's not a guide at all. It was just a general gist of how that works and what it is and what's on your sheet. So also looking at your character sheet, you would have this thing called HP. I don't know if we really need to explain what HP is in a sense. It's how you take stuff,
Yeah.
how you your health. Um,
And how much we should say HP is based off of your character class.
yes.
We'll probably go over that in each of the videos
Hmm.
for each
But
class because that's more class specific.
yeah, you roll to determine your HP traditionally, and you add your Constitution modifier,
Oh, and he's
which is your
gone.
const. I'm gone.
You
Hello,
lost it again.
I'm back.
I don't know if you heard. I said we should do HP will probably be in each of the class specific ones because
Yes.
how you get the HP
Mhm.
is based off the class.
Yes. Okay. So HP is also built in Constitution, which is like, wait a second, that makes Constitution is more important than the other skills, right? Because then it does something else besides just the skills or the ability scores. Wrong. Because something we didn't mention is all those skills like wisdom, not wisdom, sorry, survival, stealth, dexterity. I mean not dexterity. Jesus, sleight of hand, persuasion, acrobatics, athletics. All of those they're each tied to ability score, like one of the 6, but none of them are tied to Constitution at all. Constitution is its own thing.
Con is
There's no skill
fairly
for
just
Constitution.
if you have to make a con save, which will probably have its own segment in here,
Mhm.
and HP, right?
Yes. So that's how the HP works. So let's get into just forgetting the mechanics and rules. Let's look at session 1. What are you doing? What's going on?
So session 1 is usually an introduction
Hmm.
to the world, the other characters, because unless you're in a tight knit group or waited 3 weeks to start like we did, we don't know every character.
Hmm. So traditionally, D&D always follows a response of like a pretty simple format. The DM, the dungeon master, describes the scene as it is. What's around you, what's going on. Like, let's say you start in a tavern. He's like, you guys are sitting there, you see this person doing this is what's going on, this is their environment. And then you, the player, playing a character, keep in mind you are not yourself, you're not whoever you are sitting around a table being a nerd like everyone is playing D&D. You are
You still there?
this big awesome half orc or whatever. Yeah. Hey, sorry, technical difficulties. We're here. Um Where did we leave? What was the last thing said that you could hear?
Um, last thing was describing the scene.
Oh yeah.
That's the last thing I heard.
So typically the dungeon master explains what's going on, and then the player says what they want to do. And you might be thinking if you're new to this game, well, what can I do? If you're not in a combat and you're just out in the world, literally whatever you could do in real life is what you could do. You could go talk to any character you want. You could go talk to this guy, talk to that guy. You could do nothing. You could go and mess with any item you have. You could go outside. You could poop on the floor if it's really what you want to do. And then
Yeah.
based off what you do, the environment and characters in it will respond based off what the DM says happens, and so will the other characters that are playing at the table. And that's the gist of how it goes. Through that, you get hooked to an adventure. You meet friends that are some are run by the DM, like non-player characters, NPCs. Some are other characters on the table, player characters, PCs, and you explore, follow adventure. But there's a key thing I want to notate here that all new players should know. It is not the DM's sole job to make sure that the story is going where it needs to go. It is the player's job to make sure that everyone is having fun, not just the DMs, and that they're involved. So just don't, you know what I mean? Is that coming across right?
Yeah. So you're saying the DM will struggle to keep everybody involved unless those players actively try to play the game.
Yeah. Like if you're just sitting there and not enjoying yourself, purposely getting distracted, it's taking away from everyone else that's there to play the game. So, yeah, that's kind of that little tangent. Sorry. Um, Nate, do you know the difference between in character and out of character? That's a very important concept for new players.
So normally characters have like their own attitudes, which is separate from your own personal attitude as the player.
Yes.
So when you're in character, you're basically speaking for them as if they were speaking through you.
Yes. You're different people with different personalities, you and your character. Unless you're
Usually what
playing
you say
yourself.
in character affects the world
Hmm.
or something happening in the world, or you're trying to find out information or something. Out of
Yeah.
character is like more description, like my character is going to do this.
Hmm. It's also based off knowledge. Let's say you're playing and another character, another player at the table, your real life friend, tells you, "Hey, this is my character's backstory. This is where he's from. This is what he does." You know that as a player out of character, but in character, your little dude has no idea. You don't understand that knowledge. Or like you see behind the DM's little board and you notice, oh, we're about to fight a dragon. Like you get super excited, whatever. You shouldn't do that, but if you happen to, your guy in game does not know what's happening or what's behind that door at all. It's just you.
So this
It's your
is where
limited knowledge.
role play comes from.
Yay! You're playing a character.
Dividing your personal self from your character self.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like there's some things that
it's
your
actually quite
character might
fun.
do that you would never do. It is. It's an escape from your normal day to day whatever. You can do whatever. Don't. Yeah, you can do whatever, but keep in mind there will be consequences. So you don't just go around murdering people expecting nothing to happen. Just do what your character would do for the most part. But don't use that as an excuse either. Like, it's what my character would do. That's not good. If it's something dumb that's causing people issues. Just have the goal is to make everyone have fun, and that's everyone's job. And it's everyone's job to tell a story through the game. It's a collaborative storytelling experience. D&D is.
Yeah.
And while you're playing, there's kind of three main modes of the game. Like they're not really official, but they're you don't really think about them much while you're playing. But there are three like pillars of D&D. There's socialization, exploration, and combat. So far, we've covered socialization, talking to other characters, stuff like that. Nate, what is exploration in D&D?
Exploration is uh, moving throughout the world. So
Hmm.
if you start in a tavern, you might get given a quest to go to a dungeon or
Yeah.
visit a castle, or as we're doing now, go into the depths of the woods.
Yeah. But you might be thinking, okay, so you just walk. What's the point? And what's the point of this character sheet you have so far? 1 second. Yeah. So far that has nothing to do with anything that's going on. Um. So where was I at? Sorry about that. So I apologize. I'm a little puzzled. Oh yeah. So let's go back to that tavern you're at. You're talking to another player. You just started the game. You're like, hey, what's up? You talk to the character in character. You and your friend are talking, but it's not you and your friend. It's like your character Jimmy Bob the elf and his character Bobo Baggins the halfling. Okay,
I
you're
wonder where that one
talking.
came from.
Very original idea. You guys are talking, and eventually you're like, okay, Bobo Baggins, I want to go try to pick a fight with this guy across the tavern. He's giving me a weird look. I want to go fight him. And Bobo's like, nah, that's not my thing. And you're really trying to persuade him. You're like talking him up. You give him good reasons. The DM normally this is towards NPCs. I don't know why I'd use the play like another player, but like
I mean, you could do it to a
let's
character. It's fine.
yeah. Just normally that'd be like a traditionally that'd be not a role for this, but you could I guess if it's really close to persuade. You're like, come on, let's do it. It'd be fun. I don't know. The DM would be like, all right, for this you'd roll a persuasion check. So you'd roll. If you're proficient with it, you'd add your proficiency bonus, and you'd add wisdom or charisma. And bam, based off what you get, the DM will tell you if it works or not. Normally, you wouldn't do this
Well,
with another player.
if
I
it's
don't
if
know.
it's against another player, wouldn't they roll against?
Yes, they'd have a contested roll, but like traditionally, you wouldn't persuade another player. You can, but it's kind of like
Yeah, you made it a
unfair.
little bit more complex than it
Yeah.
needed to be.
Then there's also like the physical stuff. But let's say, oh no, someone locked the tavern door and you need to break out. Roll to kick down the door. Roll a strength check. Roll add strength. No skill. Sorry, I'm in pain. Okay. um, And let's say the DC, which is it's a number the DM has predetermined for the difficulty challenge. Let's say the DC is 15, which means you have to meet or beat a 15 in order to break down that door. If you don't beat it, the DM says what happens, and if you do, well, that door is getting broken down. That goes for any skill, anything you want to do. Literally anything. There's not always going to be a roll. Sometimes it's just like pretty simple. Like, I want to break that window. Okay, you can do it. I mean, not always. It depends. But some stuff is kind of
But
imply that
it
you can.
probably depends on how difficult something is.
Yeah, and also the amount of
If
time
you
you
want to
have.
if you want to push like something off a table that's light,
Mhm.
why do you need a strength check for that?
Yeah,
It's just gonna happen.
exactly.
But if you needed
See,
to
that's the.
lift something that's heavy,
Mhm.
that would take a check.
So let's say you mess with that guard, you guys are talking, um, and then it starts getting a little like a problem. The guy's like, "Hey, what's going on here? You guys want to take?" The other guy across the room, who you and Bilbo are talking to. You're talking to him, and he's like, "All right, this isn't cool. Let's take this outside." You've initiated a combat. Uh-oh. Nate is quite versed in these because I kind of put quite a lot of combat in my game.
And I'm okay with that.
Um,
It's
I
your combat is very beginner friendly, which a lot of us
yeah.
are.
I as a DM I came from fourth edition. I played that a fair bit, and fourth edition was probably the most hated edition because it was more like a, an MMORPG. It was like it was very combat heavy. But that's just how I am as a DM. I'm trying to get better at that. Like traditionally, you're not just like, oh, random bad guys fight him, go. Normally something leads to combat. Like maybe you'll get attacked by something in the woods. But like you're like messing with this guy, and he's like, all right, I'm tired of this, and he pulls out his sword. You can try to talk your way out of it, but you're gonna have to start this combat. Nate, tell me what you do when the guy draws the sword and you draw your weapon. What's going on?
Okay, so when combat starts and it's stated that combat is starting, the DM will usually the DM says they should say it. I'm just saying it makes it very
The
helpful.
famous line.
Thank you,
Yes.
Colt. Um, everybody roll initiative.
Roll
Initiative
initiative.
is turn order. It's like who goes
Yes.
first, and then order from there.
Your initiative is you just it's just a roll, a d20 roll. Most of the time when you're rolling, it's a d20, unless stated otherwise. If the DM says roll's not a check or whatever, you're rolling the 20-sided die. That's it. You add your dex. The reason it's its own thing is because some abilities will give you extra initiative rolls or advantage or whatever. But based off the numbers, the enemy will roll, you'll roll, everyone in the combat will roll, and that's the turn order from highest to lowest. And this is where, actually, no, it's not. I'll explain that later. All right. So then, let's say somebody rolled a 17, and everyone else got lower than that. They're first. What's going on? It's your turn in combat. Whoa.
Okay.
You're beaten. You're about to fight a
So
guy. How is this going to be fair?
So what you do depends on obviously your class, but also a lot of like my character specifically that I play isn't too bloodthirsty. They're more they don't really like killing things. So part of your personal lore will factor into combat, but this is more role playing here. So you have actions that you do. There's others. I don't know them all.
So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
In combat, there are three types of actions you have basically. Well, five. Well, it's okay. So on your turn, the main thing you're gonna do is your main action. Traditionally, that assists. Let's say you're a generic human fighter. You got a sword. You're walking up to hit the bad guy with a sword. You're gonna use your action to attack. Wow! Yay! You attack. All right. The DM will say, "Roll to hit." You will roll the d20, add the appropriate numbers. We're not going to talk about how that's determined. That's its own thing.
Combat should have its own episode, definitely. This is more basics.
Yeah. Yes. Based off what you roll, the enemy has an armor class, which is their AC. You heard it called that. It's determined by a lot of things. It's basically, and keep in mind, in combat, it's not just I'm hitting your armor. If they're naked, it's easier to hit. Yes, but they're also moving. They're trying to dodge your attack too. That takes that into account. If you're fighting a guy with big, heavy armor, he's not going to move. It's just bouncing off. You gotta pierce
that's
it.
why dexterity, isn't it, right? Dexterity is part of this?
Yes. But if you're like fighting a monk who's like bouncing around and really fast, he's not wearing any armor, but he's still hard to hit. But if you hit him, you do damage. Yay! That's a lot of times where you use the other dice, which when I say D20 or D anything, I typically saying D means dice, and then the number after is what kind of dice it is. A D20 is a dice 20-sided die. There's a D6, which is used in many games. You've seen it's a six-sided die. Yeah. There's a D4,
D8,
D8,
D12,
D10, D12, D20. There is a
50?
percentile dice. No. Well, yeah.
That'd be
there's
cool,
a percentile dice. It's just a D10. It's made for percentages. Online, you could find a D100, D47. There's anything, but they're never used. No one calls for them. And then if you hit, you do damage, and then that's how you play the game. That's the basics of it. Because then it depends on your class. You might be attacking. Let's say you're a wizard, a high level wizard, and you're shooting a big. I'm not gonna say what spell specifically, but you're shooting a blast at them. They have to dodge. Instead of hitting their AC, they're gonna have to make a saving throw, which is like a quick response check, making a dexterity saving throw. So they're rolling, adding their dexterity modifier, and then they could also add their proficiency bonus if they're proficient in dexterity saving throws. And Nate, do you know how you get proficient in saving throws?
No, I don't know that one actually.
Your class. What ability score you use.
Okay.
So give me a random class.
Rogue.
Rogues are dexterous. Oh, I think I missed those. That's the class I missed earlier.
Did you?
I missed rogue.
I guess I don't remember you saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, really quick. Rogues, they're stealthy, they're sneaky, they're stabby, they do big sneak attack damage. That's the one I missed. Okay. So they you're good at that. You're proficient in it. You add your proficiency bonus, and boom, that determines if you dodge it or not. Quick side note: most dexterity saving throw spells, even if you succeed it, you take half damage mostly. That's just how that is. Little side note.
That's like sure you dodged it. Fire is still really hot.
Yeah. So yes, your audio had like a insane little wave there. I hope it doesn't go through. But where was I? So that's your action. You can do other things in your action, like load a weapon that needs to be loaded, like a big crossbow or like it's really specific. Or like you could take the dodge action, which means you dodge. What that means, we'll not gonna cover today. There's a bunch of stuff you can do. You also have a move action, which means you can move up to your speed. Um, Speed typically for a character is 30 feet per turn. Um, which means normally in combat each square is 5 feet. I mean that means you can move 6 squares on your turn as a move action. You can also use your action to take the dash action, which means you're using your main action to take a move action, so you get 2 move actions. Yay, move 60 feet. That's confusing, probably. And the final type of action you get on your turn is a bonus action. You're not always going to use this, but some abilities will use a bonus action. It's like a quick little thing you do. You know what I mean? Nate, do you have any bonus action examples off the top of your head?
Yes. So I play a cleric, right? And one of
Yes.
my basic spells is a really small heal spell, and that takes a bonus action instead of a regular action. So I can use that and do
Yeah. So yeah.
it's called
Also, you
Healing Word.
cannot cast level 2 Actually, we're not gonna get spellcasting. Forget that. No spellcasting. Not today. This isn't a tutorial. It's just an introduction. Okay. So you do your combat. What happens when somebody gets to 0 HP, Nate? Do they just die?
Well, they can, but only in specific
Okay.
cases.
Well, no.
Uh,
Yeah.
when you 0 HP, you fall on the ground and you're unconscious.
Oh. Normally. No.
But you can get back up. You just have to do certain stuff.
Yes. You make death saving throws. But something I do want to cover. Everything we're saying here is traditional, is like the basics. Because any class, ability, feature, whatever, any way you get something, it can change the way this works. Anything for you personally. But an important rule for D&D is that specific rules overwrite general rules. So let's say it says when you go to here's your hit points, you fall unconscious. Let's say later on you get an ability that says when you're at 0 hit points, you don't fall unconscious. That'd be unfair, but that's more specific, I guess. That's a weird example. It's for your class
Like
specifically, so that
in
one
the
beats that.
barbarian class kind of thing.
Mhm.
Said when
That's
you
not
would
one
drop to
subclass.
0, instead go to 1.
Yeah, yeah, that's the overall class. Yeah, so that's covered in our last episode. Totally check that out, by the way. But I'm trying to take too long on this episode. Sorry. But that's combat. That's D&D. You have a whole story. Like you're like building up for this bad guy. You're having combats. You're talking to NPCs, exploring. It's mystery. It's literally whatever you want. I have played Pokemon D&D. It's insane. But it's because D&D is whatever you want it to be. Literally any world you want, anything you want. It's
Yeah.
any rule you can change.
It's
The
very
number one rule
open-ended.
of the game, you can change anything. Like it's like I don't like the rule. Let's say I don't like the rule that when you're at 0, that that's my example. That I don't know. Nate, what's the rule you'd change as a DM?
um, I don't know. I don't DM,
Okay,
so I
here's an
don't really
example.
know all that many
Yeah,
rules. I just know like
yeah.
how I play the game.
There's a rule that if you get hit by an attack and it takes you to 0 HP, but like if it does more than half of your max HP in that attack, and like through the negatives, like you don't have negative HP, but if it goes down there and just half, you instantly die. As a DM, I find that kind of demoralizing to like just randomly kill a player with no chance of survival. I'm more narrative when I like to have a more story based game, so I just don't use that rule. I don't like it. You can adapt it. You can change it. It's literally what you want. But if a player dies, they die. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. I hope that helps explain what D&D is, how it works, kind of mechanically, but also in general. What else is there to talk about D&D wise?
Like basic D&D. I think we mostly covered it.
Give you some time to talk.
It's very open-ended. If you and your DM work it out that it's okay, do it. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
If you're sitting down, you're like, all right, here's the rules of the game. You have to do specifically this, this, or this. You can't do anything else. That's not D&D anymore. It's
Yes,
not.
exactly.
The game's not really meant to be played that way.
Go play a video game if you want to do that. Also, if you're a DM or you're not there's different DMing styles, but if you're a DM and your players, like let's say your players are doing things and it's changing nothing to the game, like no matter what they do, they end up in the same spot. It's all predetermined and written. Some players like that, but at that point, as a DM, you need to just go write a book because that's what you should be giving them. It should react to their world. You should improvise as a DM. We're not gonna get too far into DMing, but it's collaborative storytelling. It's not just you. Yeah, and yeah, but yeah, that is D&D.
Yeah.
Notice the lack of Dungeons and Dragons in all of that.
But if you
Uh,
want to, you could put a dungeon or a dragon in.
a dungeon in a
But
dragon.
only if you in a dragon? So like you
No,
get swallowed by a
no,
dragon and then you're in a dungeon?
that's that. Dragon's a dungeon. Wait, I meant a dragon in a dungeon.
I know what you meant, but I mean, if
I
you
want to do
really
that
wanted
sometime.
to, you could just have like a really, really big dragon eat you, and then the entire goal is to get out of the dungeon that happens to be in its stomach.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I have a fun little segment I want to do quickly. Not a segment, but like a little thing I want to add. We're not gonna get too far into combat, but Nate, just name some monsters. Name some monsters some baddies you could beat up in D&D.
So there's zombies. They're basic. They're undead.
Yeah.
Goblins. You can face other like so like an enemy
Whoa.
or
Oh yeah.
have we done that yet? I don't know if we've done that yet. Um,
No,
what
we
else have
talked
we
about this
faced?
podcast.
We
One,
faced a really
wait,
giant
I used to hack it. Oh yeah. Also, as a DM, you can make up your own
thingy.
monsters, like change them. Like my
Homebrew.
character just fought a troll, but it's called homebrewing. You make your own stuff. You can just do it. They fought a troll, but the troll they fought, I had it so it was like electric, like a Frankenstein creature. And when it died, it died at half HP, and then for the rest of its HP, it was moving by the electricity and was controlled like an animated body. And it's like I made that up for the most part. There were some inspirations, obviously. I didn't write Frankenstein, but
Oh yeah, that's another thing. Take inspiration from stuff. Like
yes, please.
if there's a fictional thing that you already know about that's made, you use it. I mean,
Yeah,
you can like
but don't
change stuff
copy
about it
it.
if you want.
Yeah,
Don't copyright like anything.
but like
Okay.
also that goes for entire games. Like let's say like if it's just you and your friends, you're not monetizing it. Like and you guys all love Harry Potter, make a D&D campaign at Hogwarts. Do it.
I
It'd be
would love
cool.
that.
Yes. I've seen Fallout D&D. I've seen Pokemon. I played Pokemon D&D. I've never seen this. I hope it's not a thing because I'd cry myself to sleep. But SpongeBob D&D.
Please no. I'd be so bad at that. Some of us didn't grow up watching SpongeBob.
Oh, you didn't? No.
No.
You got Ryan. Okay. Well, that's kind of what D&D is. I'd like to give a shout out to some of our viewers. Um, our 7 viewers.
Did you ask them if they were okay with name dropping?
No.
Maybe we should do that, and then maybe
Yeah.
next
Okay. Shout out
episode.
to to all the fans watching that I'm shamelessly promoting a lot. It'd be totally cool if people shared this because we're not getting. I mean, we only dropped one episode, but we're trying to get people involved and interested. Shout out the guy from Portugal or girl. Um,
Or
I
you
want to say
know
it's a
what?
he
If
too.
they're just in a basement in America, right down the street with a VPN on, shout out to you anyway.
Yeah. We're also on YouTube. Look up Dungeons and Dangerous Chemicals on YouTube. I personally prefer Spotify because we can see stuff more better on that, better on there, not more better. But leave a comment, like, subscribe, please. It helps out. We got the wave audiogram thing that took me forever to figure out. Dungeons and Dangerous Chemicals. That is us. Anything else you got to add, Nate?
No, I got nothing else.
I have one more thing. I would like to sincerely and formally apologize for burping last episode.
Did that go
I have
through?
Yes, it did. Very audibly. I've been told about it. Uh, oops. But yeah,
All right.
um, that is all. Have fun playing D&D. Bye.
Adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening.
Okay.